So my name is Heather Martin, and I'm speaking with Rachael Kavanagh. It's December the 11th, 2014, and Rachael is in New Zealand. She is a mother of 4. She's very interested in issues surrounding natural health, the nuclear fallout, and all things regarding climate change, and is very interested in following what's going on with the current political activism scene. And she is speaking to me today via New Zealand on Skype to discuss her experience with Kevin and Annett. Hi, Rachael.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. So I guess we could start off with just, if you could give us sort of a synopsis of your experience with Kevin, how you came to meet him, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I've got quite a bit to say, and I'll try and I'll be as articulate as I can. There's just little side notes and side issues, but I'll try and keep on track. Just watch me there. But essentially, I met Kevin around about the 26th of February this year. I contacted him via Skype. I have a background in television research and helping to put documentaries and things together, so I thought maybe I would be, maybe of some use to the cause and to ITCCS. So I offered initially to put the common law training manual on a YouTube video with my awful voice on top of it, narrating it. Now, he was really happy about that idea. He, wanted to go forward, but he wanted to talk more, and that was fine. We got talking, and he was quite flirtatious, very charismatic, very interesting. Of course, I was interested, in him because his journey had been, he just had so many adventures and seen so much, allegedly, and. I should point out also at that time, and he knew this, I was in a very bad way with my marriage. I don't want to stay too much on the whole romantic side of things, but, it's important because it ties in with the other girls that I know that you'll be interviewing or who will be coming out. So he mentioned to me that he was very lonely, that I was very familiar to him. He had past life recall about me somewhere in Ireland, things like that. Very suddenly, I became admin of the ITCCS Facebook page and the admin of the New Zealand Common Law, a site that fitted in underneath ITCCS. He then offered me a trip to Ireland, all expenses paid, to go over and help him with the cause. In between that, I, as his secretary, no one really knew that I was, but he offered me no other real secretarial work. I just want to, make that quite clear. Then essentially what happened is I started getting warned by people, by friends, and that didn't trust him, just to back off and to do, some more research on him. I was kind of swept away because, as I said, my life was somewhat in the toilet, and I was really captivated by the thought of, having a nice life change and doing something for these poor babies, children and mothers and fathers out there. That, I was essentially quite swept away, and that was how the whole thing, began with myself and Kevin.
So he made an offer to you to go to Ireland, and what was the purpose of that trip?
I do take video footage of him, again, do more secretarial work. In the time I knew him, I never really saw any of that. I don't know, actually, just to be his secretary, as it were. But see, the thing that kind of bothered me was that, I also did investigative work, such as my background, and a girl had come to me via a friend who was directly linked with monarchy and Vatican. And she had one hell of a story, and because of what he was doing or allegedly doing in the Brussels Common Law Court, at the time, she would have made if all things being true, would have made an excellent witness to, really build up the testimonials of those who had already gone before her. So I gave him a pile of information about it, and he actually he didn't do anything about it. So that's where, I guess that's where I started to sense that there was something sort of quite not right with him.
And were you able to, were you privy to any information as far as who else was involved with ITCCS other than Kevin?
Alfred Labramon Weber, I think his name is. He did the admin on the ITCCS site with me, and of course George Dufort, which has now been outed as being a fictitious character. But those were actually the only others that I had anything to do with at all that were directly linked. So that was kind of strange to me as well, because essentially, if you've got a case, and I even know this as a layperson, if you've got a case, there are a lot of people involved just in a small, tiny, civil case. There can be so many people, but a case with this magnitude would have had hundreds and hundreds of people. And that's the other thing that sort of used to irk me, was that, well, if there's hundreds and hundreds of people involved in this, then surely one other would be brave as Kevin, to speak out about this stuff going on and back him up. Back him up, because of course it's sorely lacking in proof. So I'll just go on, but essentially I went to him with the accusations that I was hearing about, and essentially just told, they're all infiltrators, they've been turned, or they're paid spies, or they're blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so I started to dig deeper. And this has been noted and documented quite well. I think I saw this talked about on your old website, but also on dissembling.org. Mm-hmm. And they've put it quite well, and I will also concur that on their legal documents there's no actual physical address. So if you accuse somebody of something, well, they've got the right to show and to defend themselves. If they don't actually know where to go because they've got no address, well, it's suspect, to me. He'd made amendments on dates but put no counteractive signature over it to say, well, yes, I've made this amendment, sort of thing. You do that on anything, just, a check you might sign. If you've made a mistake, you can't just, put your signature over where you've made the amendment. This is a big fat legal document, supposedly, with the most vicious of accusations. You would think that something like that would not be missed. Again, George Dufort was named as being a fictitious character for, the reasons of safety or whatever. Well, to the best of my knowledge, fictitious characters can't sign legal documents because they don't exist. So to me, that, with common law, it was established by the English speaking. And to the best of my knowledge, actually, in Brussels, they speak French. So, there was just things like that. So,
yeah, they actually recognize canon law in Brussels, not common law. So,
yeah, I found that out. Mm-hmm. Also. Mm-hmm. There was also no proof as to anyone being served. There's absolutely, absolutely no proof. You can serve someone via courier, just if you're having a joke kind of thing, because it's got to be done in a certain way, obviously. And even, the courier could record the signature of, say, Buckingham Palace or whatever, But there's not even any sort of proof that way as to anyone even being served. And I just want to point out, because, just getting back to the ITCCS Common Law Training Manual, there's really no training in it. Now, I studied via a guy called Bill Thornton, and you can look him up on YouTube. He's very good, but you will see hours and hours of case law and educational programs and all these things. Common law isn't just, okay, get a jury together, appoint a judge, and a couple of, representation, point representation if you deem it fit, or represent yourself, deem that there's no harm. It's not as simple as that. There are many a way that you can stuff up in, a common law just as much as you can in a civil law. And if you listen to someone like Bill Thornton, you begin to realise that there is training that is required, and I did not see that training in anything to do with the manual for ITCCS. It was more like an overview of common law. A very sort of broad one. But if you go to men like Thornton, he is so in depth. He's incredible, and as I say, and there's procedure in this. There are ways to do things and ways you do not. What I also want to point out as well is that Annett keeps on going on about, we can't talk about this because it's so sensitive and people could be killed, and yeah, sure, I understand that. However, there were lesser cases that men like Bill Thornton had gone into court with, and he had actually taped the proceeding, or the proceeding was taped, so no one was actually identified whatsoever. But you could clearly hear the whole case pan out. Now, my question is, why can't ITCCS do that and just edit where the names are of the witnesses or whatever, So, there was just so many things.
Well, and it's interesting that he's very concerned about the identity of this fictitious court, and yet has used witnesses and their names and addresses and published that information quite freely on the internet. So their safety, the safety of the people who've actually had these experiences, who are actually testifying to these crimes, is not of the same level of importance as someone like George Dufort, who's in a completely different country, half a world away from Canada, obviously, and that's also something that raises people's suspicions as well.
Well, it should be remembered by some, and perhaps some of them will listen to this video we're doing now, Heather, because George Dufort also came on the Common Law California Skype calls. So who that actually was, now that it's been noted that he isn't real, I'd be interested to know. It's just yeah.
Well, Kevin's claimed it's a pseudonym, so there could be actually a real warm body associated with that person, but regardless of that, you are very correct. You can't have a signature of someone who is a fictitious person. A pseudonym can't be used to create legal documents.
Especially when you're going for someone like the Pope or the Queen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I'll get on with this. I came back from. I pulled back. There's too many dots not connecting, essentially. And I said to Kevin, look, I've got big problems with this, and you won't tell me what's going on, and his motivation was with me also, I should say, is that he wanted to come down here to New Zealand. So whether I was helpful to him travelling around, plus with my background, I don't know. But anyway, I pulled out, and essentially the smears against me began. I was an infiltrator. I threatened him physically. You can't see, but I'm not a very big person. I'm certainly not threatening, and I live in New Zealand. What was I going to do? Throw my saucepan at him? There was nothing. He's in Canada, I guess he was at the time. So, some really huge statements to make about my credibility and who I was as a person, and violence isn't one of them, or wasn't a part of me. Also that I'd taken some I'd left just after being given some very private information, and I could use it, sort of thing. So, yeah, I was an infiltrator, paid spy, whatever. So in the background, we had quite the go about it. And I said, look, this isn't true. Other, ones, my friends and that, of course, were getting on board and saying, Rachael, this is not who Rachael is. Kevin, what are you doing? Stuff like that. So he ended up pulling what he'd said about me, although I believe it's still online. So anyway, he came back at me via email, and he said, look, don't worry about this. We've been tested by God. to see how strong we are, and we've passed the test. By then I was, no, this is ridiculous. But I was quite shaken because, you know, when you get smeared on the internet, especially if you're not sort of used to it and hardened to it, it comes as a great surprise, especially when you've been trying your very, you know, your level best to do the best you could by the cause. So I was in a bit of shock, but then things took an interesting turn because a girl I know you've interviewed, Araya Soma, came to me via Facebook, and she said, "Hey, do you know how I can get hold of Kevin? It's been 10 days and I haven't heard anything. He's meant to be sending me some money to help out because he's coming to stay with me," or some words to that effect. And she was sort of in the process of being evicted, I believe. And so things were a bit scary for her. And then she also said, "Oh, and I'm meeting him in Ireland to do secretarial work for him." Then, of course, I realised, we've just been scammed, you know. And I said, "Oh, funny that, you know, so have I." And anyway, so I went back to Kevin with this. I actually took her message, and I was angry at the time. No one likes being scammed, even if you've kind of given up the ghost anyway. But I went back to him and I said, "Hey, what's this?" Pasted the information, you know, that he'd given me. Should have thought about that though, but, you know. So he came back to me and he said, "Well, you're mentally ill and unstable." I'm like, right, okay, and you're a two-timing piece of shit, you know. But it was all, you know, he just quick as a dime, just spun it back round on me. You know, "Well, you're unstable, you won't make your mind up about New Zealand, so what am I supposed to think?" It was all very surreal, you know. And then he kept emailing, you know, information about IGCCS and that, and I said, "Look, I'm not interested." And he goes, "Oh," and replies back, "Oh, I didn't realise you were still wallowing over me." No, I'm not wallowing over you. I'm over it. I just don't want your emails because I can't, you know, really say for sure that what you're doing is really what you're doing. "Oh no, you're wallowing." You know, so he really does hear things how he wants to hear them. I found that amusing. What I didn't find amusing was that I set up interviews by some pretty, you know, heavy hitters in the truth movement. And then, so it was embarrassing though for me to have to turn around and go, "Actually, I think this guy might be a bit of a prick. I'm not sure after all that what he's saying is indeed true." You know, fortunately I'm close enough to those people that they didn't take offence or anything and just went, "Oh, I'll take it on the chin, Rach, you know, move on." But he's a sort of personality where he doesn't really care if you go to the bat for him and he lets you down. He doesn't care. You know, he will leave you on the lurch. It's not a problem to him. Yeah, so there was, as I said, there was a lot to this. But yeah, it was a hurtful situation overall.
And so where does this leave you now? The smear's been removed, however, the damage has already been done. It's already, you know, been out there enough for people who were on the various Facebook groups you were involved in to be doubtful as far as your integrity goes. So I don't know if you want to speak to that and sort of about, you know, what the plan is for you from now on.
Essentially, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to tell the truth. I am telling the truth. I've got nothing to gain from this. It worries me that the donations that are being given by trusting people may not be being used in the way that he's saying they are. I don't like seeing people being ripped off. For all I know, he is, as others have said, sitting in his attic somewhere, you know, and just paying for women to come to and fro or meeting them overseas. I don't know, but as I say, there is not a hell of a lot of proof to really justify all of these grand things that he's saying. You know, he does have this tendency also, if there's some sort of situation or red flag, you know, somewhere in the world, to kind of tack on what the court's doing. So, "Oh, it's because of us." You know, they're just trying to distract you from what ITCCS is really doing, from the Kevin Annett buzz, by using that story. You know, it's just, you know, quite. But, you know, I'm not sitting here as a woman scorned. You know, okay, I'm not a supermodel, but I have options. Part of me is like, wow, you know, he's like, what, 58 years old? And I mean, even, you know, when I was involved with him, albeit via the internet, you know, there were at least 2 other women that I now know for sure were also. And that also raises another question. Well, if he's so busy, because you spend a lot of time on the phone with him or whatever, Skype and email, if he's so busy with all of these grand court cases, where's he getting the time to chat up 3 women on the side, sort of thing? So, yeah, my biggest concern is that the whole court thing might be bollocks. I would hate to think that we're spending time with our focus on someone like that when we should be looking at ones actually doing something and putting our money or our services to them, as opposed to someone who may not be, you know, I'm going to say the full quid, telling the truth, you know, about what he's doing. There's also, you know, on a side note, and this is neither here nor there, but, you know, so far as character goes, he's very proud to announce, you know, that he's back into, I know Rachael can talk about this too, he identifies as a druid. Now, that's sort of unsettling to me, because if you're a reverend, aren't you sort of more connected with the Christian movement as opposed to with druid pagan, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of like saying I'm Santa Claus, but really I'm the Easter Bunny. And that was something else that just goes to character as well. But bottom line, where are the donations going? Give us some proof on this ITCCS. And if you can, I would be happy to say, look, I'm really sorry, you know, but sort yourself out where your women are concerned. You know, don't use their emotions, don't use their time. It's just, it's low.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that about, you know, the proof, because I know there have been a couple of radio show hosts who, you know, initially had interviewed Kevin and now are coming out and saying, you know, gee, you know, I didn't realize that this might not actually be real, and, you know, we want you to show us these videotapes you claim you have and emails you claim you have. Because,
or as I say, even an audio of someone being, someone actually in the court, you know, because you'll hear other people talking and you'll hear, you know, the process playing out as you do with Thornton's common law cases. You don't have to say or expose who the people are. You can edit that part out, but at least you'd be able to hear something that might give it more viability. But he doesn't do that. He really does have this expectancy. Just listen to me, and yeah, my word's good.
Well, the common law court in Coventry was, I guess, assisted quite a bit from him, from that standpoint, where, you know, they were able to get a bunch of locals together and they were meeting and they were videotaping their meetings and they were voting on motions and appointing people to certain positions, and that's how I would have expected the ITCCS would have functioned, you know, to that degree of transparency where, you know, the average person, no matter what country you lived in, would be able to see that, hey, here's a common law court that is actually working, but now what we see is that Rhiann Baines, who started the Coventry Common Law Court, is now in the same position as you are, where her name is being smeared all over the internet. She's being accused of having stolen money, you know, all this kind of stuff. So you can't seem to win for losing. It seems that, you know, even if you do everything that...
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that even if you do everything that Kevin Annett tells you to do to set up this court, it's still not good enough, because I remember reading something he published where he said that people were concentrating too much on the process of setting up common law courts. And I thought that's exactly the thing that people should be focusing on, is the process and getting it right.
Agreed. absolutely agreed. And as I say, if you compare, say, the manual from ITCCS and then go over to Bill Thornton's work, or anyone that's got some clout in the common law movement, you will see a huge difference in the amount of information actually given to you. So that's sad about that lady, that and hopefully by doing, saying things like I'm saying on video, and that women like that who've been smeared will feel a little better too. I also hope that ones that maybe have been so scared of him, because he's intimidating when you go head to head with him. He can be intimidating, especially if your life is already, or if you're already feeling quite low, about things. You feel really targeted and, like I say, intimidated. And I'd like to think that, if there are people sitting in the background, they might feel strong enough now with more people coming out to say, to state their case and to tell their story, sort of thing. Kevin has the right to rebut. He's got the right to come back and say, no, you're wrong, this is why, blah, blah, blah. But if enough of us stand up together in a unified way, like myself, Araya, and the others that you and I know about, coming forth, then it's going to be much harder for him, to do this. It doesn't even matter about the womanising side of it, but it does if it means that other people are paying their donations for it. Mm-hmm. So I hope other people do come forward, and those who have been smeared, who maybe haven't spoken up yet, might actually start to.
Well, Rachel, we're going to post those links for Thornton's website and where people can get more information on his videos, so that they can actually see what that process is really supposed to look like. And we'll also add some other links at the bottom of the video when we put it up on YouTube, where people can go and get more information about George Dufort and all the other things that Kevin has been up to for the last 20 years. So I thank you for giving us your time and sharing your experience, and I know things will just improve from here on out now that you're wiser and and better off out of the ITCCS.
No, you're more than welcome, Heather. More than welcome.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Take care.